Hello again, chatters. Back here with my good friend Eldad in Voices in AI, and we are rounding out our OpenAI run here. We've done three of the leaders so far, Mira Murati, Greg Brockman, and Ilya Sutskever, and now we're ending with the head honcho, Sam Altman. So this guy is a bit of an enigma, and again, just like the rest of them, let's just say overachiever, and makes me feel a little bit self-conscious about my own successes. He's like pretty similar in age, a little older than the others. I think he was born in like 1985 in Chicago, and then at some point moved to St. Louis, Missouri, where he grew up, and that was his formative years. One major thing that people may or may not know, and luckily in this day and age, not as much of a big deal, but from an early age, he realized he was gay, and he actually came out as gay fairly early on, and has always been an advocate for the LGBTQ plus community because of that. And I think that is important because it's just part of his personality where he is just unabashedly unafraid to like essentially be who he is and
He's bold.
go and fight for things that he believes in. Along those lines, just like almost everyone else, actually, I guess just more like Greg, he went to Stanford and started studying computer science there, and he was just couldn't contain him. And he dropped out, like the classic Silicon Valley story, after 2 years of studying computer science to go and do his own thing.
Be interesting one day to universities to release how many dropouts they've had, right? That have gone on to create successful companies.
They would never.
Yeah. It's almost on collegiate basketball, right? The one and dones. The guys who would come into like Kentucky and Carolina, play 1 year and then go pro. It served as an attraction. But no, I find he's a fascinating character, personality, wherever you want to classify him, and truly an individual. His background is prolific in its successes, be it from business. People forget this is the guy who was the president at Combinator. So his ability to understand startups and across a variety of scales of industry, I think has probably fueled him extremely well for understanding not just how to go fundraise, which he's doing nowadays, 7 trillion, right? He says he's seeking for compute power, but his understanding of just how to engage from all levels of companies and their leaders. A startup founder is very different from somebody like, if I remember the name right, Mark Anderson, I think is the guy who ran Y Combinator before him.
Oh, something mentor. Graham. Maybe
okay.
Paul Graham or something.
That's it. Yes. Yeah. There's a healthy respect, it seems like, coming from that former person who helped start the Y Combinator and elevate it to what it is. He's got skills, the soft skills especially, that must be prolific, because look at what happened when he was ousted. And what was that, 3 days, right? That were just
over the course of a week.
Yeah, but he came back pretty much in 3 days. The whole thing played out over a week, but it was just everybody was saying, nope, if he's gone, I'm gone. And it was a high percentage, 80-90% of the company was saying, if he's gone, I'm not. I don't want to be at OpenAI. So he's got to be doing something that, while many people will see him either as hero or villain, and who knows what history will decide in the future, that side of him as a leader, I highly respect.
Yeah, and just to rewind a little bit, the reason he left Stanford was to start his own company called Loopt, which was one of the first sort of GPS tracking apps, so you could see where your friends were at, which we look back on now, we're like, ooh, like,
yeah,
probably not the best
though
idea.
Snapchat still does it, don't they?
Right? Yeah. Everyone still does it. That's the thing. It's yes. Not, it doesn't make sense as like a standalone app anymore. But at the time, it made a lot of sense as new technology, but it ultimately failed. But let's just think about that for a second. This guy is like, what, in his 20s?
Yeah.
And he has started and gotten multiple millions of dollars for this company after being a dropout at Stanford. It's very clear from the beginning that he can convince people to hand them his wallets to do something. And even though Loopt ultimately failed, as you were saying, positive part about all of that was Loopt was part of a Y Combinator cohort, and the leader of Y Combinator at the time, after Loopt failed, was like, he was ready to step down, and for some reason chose this 26-year-old to be the president of Y Combinator. So it's like something like, who knows what he did to impress him so much, but it's very clear from an early age. Even though, I don't know, this video we watched from Cold Fusion, I don't know if you remember this fad that is luckily dead now, is the double, what's it called, polo shirt, where you have one polo after the other with the collars. He was like wearing that in one of his videos. I'm like, oh my God, I remember that. So definitely like some preppy kid, but he must be doing some magic behind the scenes to convince these people to essentially like hand over control, which again eventually led to him and Elon Musk coming together with the other founders of OpenAI. And again, at a very early age, what was it, like 2017-ish or whatever? No, 2015. It's like he's convincing people to do these long-term, like huge donations to a very long shot type of company, which is, to create artificial general intelligence.
Yeah. And there's some videos now, speaking of somebody that our audience should be aware of, David Shapiro on YouTube has these videos that if you look at his list, it's AI AGI in X number of months. And every so often he releases his AGI in 18 months. And recently he had one AGI in 7 months. And I think he focuses a bit on Sam Altman and everything that's happening there in that one. But no, it's very interesting that as disconnected as we are from actual people, we feel so connected because one, social media and the amount of news that they garner. And everybody has an instant or dislike to somebody just from what they're perceiving from those readings, or if they're videos, you can get a much more firsthand look and feel. And as potentially polarizing as he is, Sam Altman, you get the sense that the majority of people are appreciating what he's doing. Even if they do see him in this AI end of the world catastrophe potential, they still think that and believe he's doing the right things for running such a company. And, I find it fascinating that from what I've seen of his interviews, and they've been infrequent, to be honest, you get the sense that the guy understands the landscape, right? And everything. But I don't get the sense of the whole coding and the background, the technical background that he must have. He must be showing it to his teams to gain that loyalty. And the comparison for me is coming out of the advertising world. Martin Sorrell was known to know everything about, he was the sage of Soho or something like that. That he knew everything that was going on in the advertising world, right? From technology to companies. And you get the sense that's Altman's strength, right? And it's just, I find it fascinating when you see those kind of individuals.
Yeah, one of the first interviews I watched in AI land was actually obviously the one with Lex Fridman and Sam Altman.
That's a long interview.
Well, they're all long interviews, and I loved every second of it. And at that period of time, I was very impressed with how Sam approached things, asked questions, and considered things. And ever since, like, the beginning of last year, Sam has been on a non-stop sort of charm offensive around the world. Literally, he went around the world to talk to people about their use of ChatGPT and learning about how it's impacting different societies and cultures and all this kind of stuff. And I was on the Sam Altman bandwagon until November of 2023, when everything went to shit and he was essentially fired by the board. And knowing that Ilya was part of that decision, I suddenly had a different sort of taste in my mouth, where instead of me seeing him as calm, even temperament, thoughtful, I started to think, wait, actually, is maybe this guy a little bit of a sociopath, actually? Is he really just a little bit more like actually doesn't really have strong emotions and is just in it for power and to make a buck? We started to see a couple things during that period and a little bit before where he was like trolling Elon Musk a little bit on Twitter. And then when he was removed from OpenAI, there were like the tweets of him like with his little card, he's I'm already back and stuff like that, where I'm starting to see maybe actually that was a facade that he had on. Now those things are starting to crack a little bit. But at the end of the day, it's like really hard to know because it's not like I work with this guy on a day-to-day basis. And ultimately, I do not question at all that his intentions are pure in the sense that it's clear that he wants to do AGI. He wants the world to be a better place. But I'm a little scared that this last year has ballooned him with hubris, and that hubris is inevitably going to end in not such a great thing for society. But I don't know.
It's funny that was your take, because for me, I think helped elevate him into a bit more of a positive light, right? And you can see from the comments I made earlier, right? There's got to be something about 80% or more of the company saying, no, if he's not here, I'm not here. But I agree with you, because we all know power corrupts, right? And this is probably one of the most powerful things that mankind's ever got, right? Prometheus. And yeah, it's interesting. That's all I can keep saying. Such a bad adjective. But I think it will be paramount to observe where his decisions take the company as well as the technology. You can see they're moving lightning fast. When we're filming this, it's a week since Sora got released. Mm-hmm. And people are like, where's that going to
announced, not released.
Announced, yes. True. Very true. But the capabilities of what we're going to be able to can do now is just remarkable for where we were 14, 15 months ago. And if that's the pace of change, good God, how do you lead an organization, and especially the ethical and safety concerns that everybody needs to have in this realm? But the other thing also that I think remarkable is lately, I don't see anything about Anthropic, right? Which is one of the key competitors. Now, and even after they released their upgrade on the token, which followed suit after the 100,000 limit that OpenAI created.
Yeah, a little more, 128.
Yeah. It's like, where are those guys? Are they falling behind? Because if you want to talk about ethics, they're the ones who seem to promote themselves very much around that.
They have been quietly raising a lot of money, and I think they have taken a completely, like you said, different approach than OpenAI and Google. OpenAI is definitely very much more on the side of let's just ship quickly, it's going to be messed up, let people mess around with it, and then we'll make fixes.
Yeah.
Google has a lot more sort of compliance and stuff they have to deal with just because they're a much larger and institutional company. Yeah. So they do have to take their time a little bit. And then Anthropic is on the other side of the spectrum of very slowly releasing things, making sure everything is safe by their definition prior to release. And that's working the way they want. But they have gone a lot deeper into the partnerships with Google and Amazon and stuff like that, where they're being used on their servers. So it seems like they're moving a little bit less towards the retail, more towards the commercial in terms
more,
of like focusing
less mainstream,
more
B2B.
Yeah, exactly. But we'll see. Again, it's like there's three different approaches here. And I think
you get to three if you're saying just mainstream people or B2B.
Sorry, I meant three in terms of Google, OpenAI, and Anthropic.
Understood. Gotcha.
Yeah. And I would say that there's, again, like this funny dig where they announced Gemini 1.5 and all the cool, like 1 million tokens and all this kind of stuff. And 10 minutes later, OpenAI dropped that Sora video. And it's very clear that these two are like bumping heads. And like I said, too, Sam Altman and Elon Musk are not the best of friends right now, but Anthropic seems to generally be staying out of the limelight. They're not doing as many interviews. They're not putting out many articles. Like they're just down in the dirt doing research and trying to focus on safety.
It reminds me of a funny moment that a friend of mine pointed out to me. Do you remember about a year plus ago, they had all the big heads of tech companies at Congress in the US, and some of them were at home, right? And Bezos was one of them. And everybody kept hammering Facebook and Google and whoever else was there. And at one point, Bezos was just eating his bagel for breakfast, on camera. And you get the sense like Anthropic may have seen that and said, you know what? Yeah, it might be good to hang back for a little while.
Let these guys fight it out. We're just going to keep working.
But there is something I think that also goes back to what we were talking about with Sam Altman in the Y Combinator days, right? Out of that culture of iteration, speed to market. The realities are that often it's not the best product anymore. It's first to market that gets the lion's share. And
and not just first to market for lion's share, but first to market in hands of consumers. You can quickly, like you said, iterate, figure out how it breaks down so you can fix it versus trying to build everything in a lab and try to like tell the future in terms of how things will break and predict things when there's a balance there where if you do too much in either way on either side, it might not end up so well for you, but this is what we're seeing happen right now.
Yeah. And while we're talking about things that are kind of strange and ongoing, the GPT store, that's been around for what?
Since November.
Okay, so a little longer. Just closer to 4
months.
Yeah, 3-4 months. And OpenAI is owned by Microsoft.
They're not owned by Microsoft.
Okay, but
they're partnered with Microsoft.
They're partnered.
They would fail without Microsoft, but they're not owned by Microsoft.
Okay, yes. You caught me on the semantics there.
It is an important semantic difference, though.
Absolutely, because then it gives him him being Sam Altman, the free reign to do what he wants to do. But the thing I was going to point out is, if Microsoft is so heavily involved, where's the search feature for GPT stores? It's horrible.
So is Bing.
No, they've improved a lot. And come on, you got to give them some credit. You would think if that's one of the most powerful things that you're bringing to the public, this capability to actually fine tune an LLM to just what your tasks are and your data. And these are publicly available. That's the point, that people can share and so forth. That search feature's got to improve. There's a beautiful site, there's an AI for that, which is all about tools. There's a GPT for that.com. And somebody just,
There are websites and there's actually GPTs that will help you search for.
Yes.
GPT should be part of the system. But this is one of those things. They shipped it super early. It was very unimpressive and is still pretty unimpressive. But they're going to keep just adding features and adjusting their roadmap based on how they're seeing people interact with stuff. It's just.
Yeah. Cool. Well, so the more we interact with it, the more it's learning.
Yes.
Good and bad, right? That's the realities of the world we're living in right now.
Yes, and hopefully my more recent feelings about Sam Altman prove to be false, and he is a stand-up amazing guy who will usher us into the next phase of humanity. Thanks, Eldad. I'll see you next time.
Always a pleasure.